Is it possible to follow a low-fat and low-carb diet? My short answer is yes, and in the short term, it can be effective for some people, but there's a lot more to it than that. You might think that I would just say, don't do this. This is crazy. But I think there's a balance point of following. I like to say lower fat or lower carb because it's always in relation to something else, right? There's not one measure of like, this is considered low fat or low carb, unless you're talking about ketogenic diet where, there is a certain gram number that you do need to keep below to support your body into getting into ketosis. That being said, I do think there's a way to do this, and I don't know that it's a healthy thing to do for forever in terms of not only enjoyment, but socializing and, a variety of foods and nutrients that come with them. So with that caveat, if you're trying to just reduce the amount of fat you're taking in, it's fairly easy to do that by switching the types and cuts of meat that you're eating and not adding tons of extra fat to your meals. And of course, it hurts my heart to be like, eat chicken breast. But obviously, chicken breast is a very lean source of protein. You can eat chicken thighs. There's not a ton of fat in a chicken thigh. Of course, adding the skin to it will add a little bit more, and cooking it in tons of fat is where you're going to add a lot more fat there as well. You would opt for fish, maybe some white fish or different types of fish, and just avoiding the fattier cuts of meat. You can still be eating whole eggs when you're balancing the rest of your plate. So eat whole eggs instead of adding some olive oil to the plate, because as much as I love olive oil, I think the nutrition you're getting from an egg yolk, it's just a lot more vitamin and mineral dense than what you might get with a spoonful of olive oil. So think about nutrient density, focus on that. If you are trying to limit these things, what's going to end up happening is you have to eat a lot more protein. That gets really, really expensive, and the quality of the protein that you're eating may or may not be that great. So just keep that in mind. But let's just say you were trying to keep your fat a little bit lower, around 50 grams a day, which is not that much. And let's just say you were trying to keep your carbs a little bit lower as well, around 75 grams. That's only going to give you about 750 calories, which is really only about half of your calories for the day. That means you're going to have to get 150 or so grams of protein in for the day, which is a ton of protein. And it's really important to make sure that you're just not undercutting both fat and carb too much and then relying too much on protein. So I do think that you can do this in a way where you get some good healthy fats into your diet, you get some starchy foods and more plants, more veggies, things like, broccoli and any kind of leafy greens and Brussels sprouts and all of that. I would get to a point where I'm not actually even counting those. I just don't think you need to limit those to a crazy degree when you're limiting fat and you're eating a good amount of protein. And if you're trying to get only a certain amount of fat in, it's like the last thing was saying it, and the fat that you're getting is not nutrient dense fat, then you're also really skimping yourself on this stuff. So let's just say you eat chicken breast and broccoli and coconut oil. Coconut oil is not the most nutrient dense fat. I would much rather somebody take in a really small portion of pate and get the liver and have that as their fat source, or even something like bone marrow. This is the kind of stuff where if you're trying to play with the macronutrients and limit some things, I really want people to be looking at, well, what are the micronutrients I'm getting here too? Because at least if I'm being smart about this, I might be limiting some of these things, but let me get the most vitamins and minerals for the calories that I'm taking in. And that's where we really talk about nutrient density. You can eat lower calorie and high nutrient density if you pay close attention to what you're doing. But a lot of times what happens when you cut back on all this stuff too much is that you're limiting the nutrition coming in overall, and it's not sustainable for the long term. That's all I've got for you guys today. Remember, I post new videos every week. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think of this video, or to share what you want to learn more about from me. I'll see you next week. So let's just say you eat chicken breast and broccoli and coconut oil. Coconut oil is not the most nutrient dense fat. I would much rather somebody take in a really small portion of pate and get the liver and have that as their fat source, or even something like bone marrow. I really want people to be looking at, well, what are the micronutrients I'm getting here too?